Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. Coming back after a little hiatus during the holidays. Happy holidays, everyone. We got Angry Scott from the Brutal Truth Buckeye podcast on him, and a special OG guest coming back from the dead like the Undertaker. We got Big Sean. How we doing today, boys?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing well. How you doing, Angry Scott?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Even better since Big Sean's back on. He can honor us with his presence.
Exactly. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get those subscribers up. We made our little goal this year, but always adding to the family.
I actually don't do that because nobody in life likes to kiss ass, kids.
There we go. Got Sean coming in with his lovely commentary. We missed him. All right, jumping right into it, boys. I believe it's a big game. Is there a game Saturday? I was telling them earlier. I think I'm gonna be like Netflixing from about 8 to 11:30, then get ready.
Are you talking about? You're talking
Ryan
about
Seacrest?
Are you talking about the Iowa Kentucky game on Saturday?
I am. I'm excited about that. I'm gonna be
SEC
busy watching
Big Ten
those.
matchup, man. Fucking Iowa. I don't know. They know if offense is, and Kentucky. I don't know who's left. Like
Exactly.
Levis is on to the pros, isn't he?
I don't even know who their backup is. He's terrible. Yep, Kentucky. Hey, jumping right into it. Number 1 Georgia in the Peach Bowl against Ohio State. Scary matchup for us. It actually 6.5 point spread. This hasn't moved at all, which I've been surprised. I thought it would have hovered around a little bit. Big matchup, second life, as they're saying, redemption for Ohio State. Well, since we got a special guest here, Angry Scott, what's your thoughts on the game? You can lead it right away. Ohio State 6.5 point spread against Georgia. A little redemption.
Well,
game.
my heart says Bucks. My brain says Bulldogs. I've got to go, and I think that we are good enough to beat Ohio State to beat Georgia, but we'll be able to do this. I hope we can pull what Georgia did last year in the SEC championship game, losing 41-24 to Alabama, lose by 17 points, and then go on to win the Natty. So I hope that helped. I hope that happens. I think that Georgia's D-line scares me to death, especially, our O-line's better in pass blocking than what they are run blocking. Also, we're just fucking pulling people out of nowhere. We're converting linebackers to running back in the Michigan game. So I don't know. We have a couple guys out there. I hope that the fuck was that?
This is dogs. Go ahead. That's the mascot.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, that's the mascots. I'm worried about shit like that happening because that's going to distract CJ Stroud and everybody, right? So, I think we've got the talent to make it happen. Ohio State, but we got to cut it loose. So it's one of these. There's a second lease on life. So if we can get a second lease on life, then hey, we can come up. It's just that D-line scares me to death. I'll take our wide receivers over your DBs. And I'm saying your DBs look real good against Tennessee, but at the same time, I don't know. Is it going to be enough? We're going to cut it loose. CJ Stroud going to have enough time to cut it loose. Our D lines pretty decent, not as good as obviously Georgia's D line, and our secondary is a big concern. So it's kind of like when we spoke about earlier. I look at Bowers, man. Ohio State, we got no answer for Bowers. It's going to be everything we want and more. And like I said earlier, when we were doing the Brutal Truth Buckeye podcast, is that I don't need CJ Stroud to be Lamar Jackson. I just need him to run the ball when it's there. And that's something he doesn't like to do. So we get a second chance if we play tight like we did against Michigan. If we don't make any adjustments whatsoever, you're playing against a better team in Georgia. It's going to get even worse. But what can you do from watching that Kent State video, that Mizzou video, that tape to see, hey, what did they do? What can we do to do better? Hopefully, we come up with some sort of defensive plan, that'd be great. Hopefully to still align there for Kirby Smart, we can be elite because you're either elite or you're not, brother. So, it's a talent wise, I think, we could match up with the talent, but it's a tall task. It's a tall task anywhere. It's even taller task when the game's in Atlanta. I think, Buckeyes travel well. I still think that the crowd's probably going to be at least 60-40, 65-35 in the favor of Georgia, just because the Ohio State folks I've talked to, it's been tough to get some tickets. So I don't know. It's the only thing I'll say about Ohio State is the times we're hardly ever an underdog. and the times that we've gone and been big underdogs. 2002, Iowa State 13-point underdog against Miami, Florida, going to the win game, win the national championship. Big underdogs against Alabama, and we're going to win that game. So we have the guys to do that. It's just my other thing I'll say, and I'll kind of get some thoughts here for Big Sean, is right now I have no doubt that C.J. Stroud will get drafted higher than Stetson, if Stetson ever gets drafted or if he's just an undrafted free agent or whatever. But I think he's the better college quarterback and I think there's some people there, like, not only that he has to, the game's more on CJ's shoulders than what it is on Stetson. He just needs to get it to his guys, and Stetson's not afraid to run the ball. I mean, he like 5'8", he's 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing, right? I mean, what is he, like 5'8", 180 or something? I mean, he's super short, but I mean, I think he's the better college quarterback in this game. What are your thoughts there, Sean?
No, those are I don't disagree with anything you've said. And kind of something I wanted to piggyback a little bit on is, I know this is off podcast, but kind of how you were hoping that the Michigan loss in November was kind of would be a catalyst for Ohio State to make a run similar to what Georgia Alabama was, whether you want to say it was 2021. I would kind of argue that it was probably more of 2020 when we lost at the road to that machine. Because, I think to that point, right, Kirby had a noticeable deficit or weakness on every one of his teams, and it was always quarterback playing explosive offense. And, fortunately, he was able to correct that by bringing in Todd Monken, right? Now, obviously, Todd Monken had to make chicken salad out of, athletically chicken shit with Stetson Bennett. I mean, and a lot of Georgia fans disagree. A lot of college football fans may disagree with that, but nobody's mistaken this guy for, even Tom Brady when he was coming out of college, to keep it within the playoff context, right? I mean, he's just very clearly a college quarterback. You can just see it from the talent standpoint. I think Ryan Day did something similar in bringing in the new defensive coordinator you guys did. Although I think the one area where maybe, you got to get things figured out is still offensive line. I know running back at one level has been, an issue depth there for you guys. But the reality is if you don't play physical football, it just, you're just going to get worn out. You know what I mean? It's football, despite all the explosive plays you have today, it's still very much one of the trenches, right? And, that was a complete slug match that you guys had with Michigan, I would say, up until the third quarter. And then at that point, they kind of controlled the line. So, to me, my concern more than necessarily what you've got at running back is, how is your offensive line going to respond? And it's a great motivator, right? Because I'm sure they're getting plenty of criticism in the paper and, other media sources and, people saying, oh, they can't keep up with, Georgia's defensive line, yada, yada, yada. But, if they can or they can't, it's not going to be because of lack of talent. You know what I mean? Because you guys have recruited extremely well there. It's really just, can they put it together? And sometimes that takes time. Our offensive line, it took a couple of years, I thought, to really gel. Even with having Sam Pittman in there, he's recruiting all that talent. It just doesn't necessarily happen overnight. So to me, I think that's kind of the big thing. It's two things for you guys. It's how does your offensive line respond after that loss? Because I've got the feeling that if your defense can just kind of get some breaks, that they're going to be able to make some plays. There's definitely talent there for sure. That number 44 defensive end you guys have, I guess he's a Samoan, like scares the daylights out of me. He's just a freak of an athlete.
What's his name, Scott?
Talk about JTT?
Yeah.
JT Tuatongamola or something like that?
Yeah. Right, yeah. I mean, that guy is just an absolute beast. And so, if he can get some time, or if he can certainly like collapse the pocket, then, obviously we're not going to be able to throw the ball or do much else.
Well, can I give you some thoughts on that? On kind of some of what you said there, Sean. So our D line's better, but I still don't see JTT could be great. Harrison could be great. Is he a Bosa brother? He's not. Is he Chase Young? He's not. So we do have some talent, but then it's also how you develop that talent. And Jim Knowles had been our defensive coordinator, had been doing pretty good this year until he completely screwed the pooch in the Michigan game. All right. I put a lot of that on the D coordinator. Okay. I still think Georgia's D line is better than Ohio State's D line. Okay. And then I'd also say with 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it was an 8-point game, Ohio State versus Michigan. So I would put that on some of our coaching, our lack of adjustments on Ryan Day and everything else. I think Ohio State's a more talented team than Michigan. Doesn't matter, man. They won the game. Now, what I've been watching Michigan football, do they then just wear people down? Because if you had a problem stop Michigan wearing people down, it's not going to get easier against Georgia. And to your point, you talked about the trenches. I think Georgia is going to dominate the trenches. And we do have issues from running back. I'd love to have, our one running back's out. He's been banged up all year. Another one, he's sick right now. He's going to come back. And then we have a freshman. And I shit you not, a converted fucking linebacker was our main running back in the Michigan game. All that concerns me. And you say, hey, these are things that can motivate the offensive line. They have been better pass blocking than run blocking. I've seen that all year. But is it going to be enough? Is it going to be enough? Because when I saw when it gets that, I know it's your big rival and everything when Ohio State plays Michigan, but I saw a lack of adjustments. Hopefully they come in, they can play loose when we play Ohio State football. But against Georgia, will it be enough? And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing, too, that's got to happen, and you guys had this last year, but, I think you got to have another wide receiver that can kind of free up Marvin Harrison as well. I think if you can do that and, you guys can kind of attack the field from wherever, then it's harder just to kind of stack the box against the run.
Yeah, we probably just have to run just to let us know that it's there. And I keep on going back to this. I mean, right now, the more mobile quarterback is Stetson Bennett. Okay. And it's like we talked about in this other podcast. You can say whatever you want about a Tebow. I'm not a Tebow fan, but I don't know as though I've seen in my lifetime a better college quarterback. Wins two national championships, wins a Heisman, loses one game in his senior year. Now, Cam Newton was on that same team, right? And Cam was at Florida until he flew a laptop out the window, went to Blinn Community College, and made his way where everyone with a trouble pass ends up, Auburn University, including Hugh Freeze and their new head coach. And you talk about a perfect fucking fit for Auburn. Now, he did go on to win a national championship in that season and then certainly had a better pro career. However, you can't tell me, even though that was a great season he had at Auburn and Cam won the national championship, you can't tell me that Cam, he was a more talented quarterback, but he was a better college quarterback. That's what I think you got in Stetson. I think he's a tremendous college quarterback, man. I mean, he's a walk-on for Christ's sake. And look at everything he's done. So CJ in this game, we'll see, man. I mean, he's got a great arm. He makes some great passes. And we have, besides Marvin Harrison Jr., we got Emeka Egbuka. You got Julian Fleming. So you got a lot of 5-star guys out there. So, and we have Kate Stover, who's our tight end, who's been pretty decent this year. He's not Brock Bowers because nobody in college football is, right? But so we have those other things, but he doesn't want to run the ball. And I don't need you to be Lamar Jackson. I just need to run when it's there. So that being said, I mean, let me ask you this from a Georgia standpoint. You kind of given me, what you think, Ohio State needs to do against Georgia, but where do you feel confident Georgia against Ohio State? The trenches, and where else do you see there's an advantage?
I feel like we can probably run the ball. I feel offensively most confident, like with Brock Bowers, and probably being able to run the ball, and able to get some stuff off of play action. To me, the defense is just it's a bit of a crapshoot. I mean, obviously, our defensive line has to come out and play the way that they have all year. Sometimes that just doesn't happen, though. You know what I mean? For any multitude of reasons.
Hey, Sean, you got to admit that I told him last podcast, 88's a problem for anybody. Guy's coming. Carter, he's a problem.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he's a heck of a player. I mean, but I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's if you can get receivers open, we can certainly be scored on. I mean, Alabama's proved that several times. So I mean, I think if you're Ohio State, you probably are going to kind of want to figure out a lot of those drag and slot concepts that Sark and Kiffin have always run against Kirby's scheme with great success. To me, I'm most comfortable on the offensive side of the ball. I think, we're going to be able to get some things there. The defense, it's just hard to say. Like, to my mind, the Tennessee game was the first time that, a Kirby Smart defense in Georgia has shut down, an elite offense. Normally, I think the stat going into that game was he was like 0-4, 0-5. When you factor in the Bama losses and then also 2019 LSU. So, to me, I think Ohio State just be Ohio State, right? Georgia, I mean, I feel like Georgia's got to be able to just make enough stops, right? I don't necessarily think you have to completely shut down Ohio State because I don't know if it's possible. But I feel like Bowers is going to be able to do some things. I think we'll be fine. The passing game and things like that. On our defense, it's hard to say because I've just seen in plenty of these big games with teams that have explosive wide receivers that we get nailed. So, I mean, I think Trey.
How do you feel about? Let me ask you this: how do you feel about your secondary?
I feel like it's probably the best secondary Kirby's had at Georgia. That said, I feel like modern day secondaries in college football are kind of the equivalent of like what a fullback was, and really probably what a tight end was in all honesty before, Brock Powers got to Georgia. And that, it's kind of one of those units that, it contributes, you want it to be effective, but it doesn't necessarily change the game either way, right?
Because when I watched that Georgia Tennessee game, man, what you did is you put those guys on islands. They did well, and I can tell you from watching Ohio State all year, our secondary is not very good, and is very much a concern from Ohio State standpoint. They cannot be on islands alone, or if they are, the only way we win this game is by outscoring Georgia, which could be tough to do. That's why I asked you about your own secondary.
Yeah, well, and again, I think that Travion Henderson, did he play in Michigan? I thought he did.
No, so Travion's he was out and he's kind of been banged up all year, and he's going to be out for this game. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba never really made it back, and I kind of talked about that earlier. Both of them tried to come back a couple times and had false starts, and we really need the running back more than what we need. We really need the running back more than what we need the wide receiver. I'd take another, top 10 pick wide receiver any day, but that we have filled in pretty well with those other guys.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, I think that if you can just find a way, really, if you're able to spread us out, because that's the thing that I think that Bama's always done well is that if you can sustain pass blocking, kind of spread us out, and then get yards after contact. I don't know that we've ever figured out how to stop that, because the one area where I think we're weak at, is all honesty, is our outside rushing. We just haven't necessarily recruited there at the same level we have at other places. And I can guarantee if we're going to blitz you, it's going to be right up the middle. So, because we've recruited so well at inside linebacker, and our defensive line's a bit of a strength. Outside, you don't have much to worry about. So if you can, if you guys have that strength pass blocking, if you give Stroud enough time, and you have somebody who can just get yards after concept or yards after catch, those conversions start to get demoralizing on a defense.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that look, Ryan Day, he hasn't lost very many games. I think he's lost. Let's see. Lost to Clemson in 2019, got revenge in 2020, lost to Bama in the championship game, lost to Georgia. Lost to Oregon, lost to Michigan. So he has 5 losses. And what is it? This is 4th year or something. So I want to say we've been to the playoffs 3 of the 4 last 4 years. That being said, I definitely put the coaching advantage to Georgia. And Ryan, he comes with a good plan, but I need to see some adjustments. And Georgia can go out there and they can play their B+ game, and they can still win. I'll say, man, we need to have 2 of our best games this year. And so the talent is pretty equal, but I think there is more talent on Georgia. So it's not like a huge talent gap, but I think and we still have pretty good depth, but I think there is, especially in that D line, more talent. I think your defense is definitely better than ours. Offense, we'll see, man. I mean, if Georgia's offense was going against Georgia's defense, and Brock Bowers is not on the field, how do you feel? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, yeah, okay, that's 100% a fair point. I mean, obviously, I'd always take our defense. But that said, I just kind of feel like for the most part, if you have an elite offense, and again, this year was there's kind of an abnormality for whatever reason, right? Maybe we were just due, maybe Tennessee just had an off day, whatever it was. But outside that Tennessee game, normally we tend to get shellacked. And I know a lot of people will say, well, we beat Alabama last year. But, I mean, Alabama was pretty much down to, borderline walk-on wide receivers at this point, given the number of guys that are portaling out from the program.
So you're saying your national championship last year was just all a fluke, right?
Nah, Sean said if Williamson didn't go down, it would have been different. But hey, win's a win, man.
I think he could have. I mean, he was torching us, wasn't he? And I mean,
hey, former Ohio State Buckeye that didn't get playing time there, so he went to Alabama in the SEC to get more playing time,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So what you're saying? What I want to ask you, Sean, here's a specific question. If you've got a glass of water or probably an alcoholic beverage in front of you, you drink half of it. Is that glass half empty or half full? Sounds like it's half empty. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
It's just I mean, I know we had a couple of squeakers or games that maybe concern you a bit earlier in the year, but I would also say that they were against, smaller programs, 12 o'clock games. I don't necessarily know that you always get the most motivated team at that point. That's necessarily an excuse, but at this point we're undefeated and just I don't know. I mean, I just think that it's I don't know that even at this point in the year we played anybody as good as Ohio State either, and so you kind of wonder about potential overconfidence and things like that.
Well, the other thing I'll say, man, watching college football a long time, with these playoff games, when you have several weeks to plan for, then usually the better team goes and wins. Okay, usually the better team will go win because you have several weeks to play for. The other thing I'll say is, man, I think Georgia's been the best college football team all year. So when it comes to this game, it's just I've just seen crazy things that when you think, oh, it's going to be no problem, it's going to be. There's a reason you haven't seen a back-to-back national championship by any team. It says, I think Alabama, then it was a late 2009, 2010, something like that. So it's just so tough to do. Everything's, and you still could go on to win this game. And then after you go on to win this game, you hit the next one and, then you lose to whoever's there. I mean, as I explained earlier in another podcast, it's, obviously I want Ohio State to win the whole way, But me, I know the SEC is like, brother, we got another one if Alabama wins. I don't care about the Big Ten, man. I sure as fun to want Michigan to win. Michigan, man, they've 2 national championships since 1948. 1948 and 1997 was a split national championship with Nebraska. So, I talked to the Michigan fans. They say, hey, the 10-year war, Bo Schembechler beat Woody out in those. I'm like, well, how many national championships did Bo Schembechler have? As many as everyone doing this podcast. 0. Woody had 5. So what it comes down to is Ohio State too, man, is very rarely an underdog. Okay. And so when we come into that Miami game, that 2014 Alabama game, we want it. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. And it's just so tough with Georgia. You're running, you're playing with house money. I won the national championship last year. I think you're the best, most talented team in the playoffs. I think you are. But it's just so tough to repeat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could still win this game, but it's going to be then. And you could say back to back. But to do 3 in a row, man, I don't think it's ever happened. Not in modern day college football, right? Even with all those great Alabama wins.
No, not in modern day football for sure. It hasn't. Yeah, it's just too much.
What are your thoughts there, Trey? Let's do some Baby Driver.
Yeah, I'll give you my
inputs.
thoughts. I got a lot to say. I was letting the special guest here talk. I'll go ahead and lead it off and make my pick. But anyway, so what really scared me, of course, explosive offense. C.J. Stroud, probably all in all, better overall quarterback. Bennett, you got to give him his respect. Been a winner. Got invited to New York. 6.5 point spread. What I like about it, like I mentioned on the previous podcast, is I think it's a real big advantage having this in Atlanta. First off, we played there twice. Bennett's played really good, averaging, I think, 49.5 points a game, 49 against Oregon. Blew out a really good Oregon team. Then we hung 50 on LSU. In that game, though, Nussmeier, the backup, came in and torched us, and we ended up giving up over 500 yards. So that definitely scares me. I think Kirby's going to really focus in on that. Another thing, stat was, I think I mentioned previously, tight ends and receiving running backs defense. Ohio State's second against that, but you haven't played anybody like Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers. We do have not elite running backs, but they're good. We're pretty deep there, around 3. Also, I think we're going to travel well. I think Ohio State might get between 13 and 17 tickets, 1,000 tickets I've heard. So it could be, like you mentioned, Scott, 60-40, 60, 65-35.
I'd be highly impressed if they only had 13 to 17 tickets out of like 80-some thousand.
No, I meant 13,000 to 17,000 is what I heard at the allocation.
You want to talk about having some better land.
So, I think it holds 70 something in Mercedes-Benz. It's not as big as usual. Another thing that's going to be important is we're possibly getting, hopefully, Ladd McConkey. I heard he is going to practice. Still quiet on Warren McClendon. That would be a negative, but I do like Amarius Mims as a valid backup. And then a guy, the key guy in all of this, because your secondary is a little weaker, is A.D. Mitchell, who hasn't played all year, possibly our top wide receiver, who has played recently, another 3 weeks of the ankle. Another thing is where his head's at, because it is rumored because of transfer portal guys, he might be looking to transfer. So is he going to be a team player and have his head in the game and try to finish strong? That's another thing. But I'm going to go ahead and make my pick because Bennett's been balling. We got him at home. This is going to be a 4-quarter game. Get out the bourbon, get out the liquor. It's going to be a lot of drinking. Another stat too, Sean, I mentioned previously. Where do you think Kirby Smart's record is when he scores over 30 points in his career, his team? We got stat
1-6.
What is that?
1-6.
1-6. Come on, man. He's 56-1. 56-1 when he scores over 30 points. And here also is, can you name the game they lost in your Georgia story if you hit it?
It's one of the Alabama games, right?
Actually, I would say that's a good guess. It's actually the Hail Mary against 2016 against Jacob Eason. Remember that at the very end? They put up over – Georgia scored over 30 loss. So anyway, 56-1 with over 30 points, which is a great stat at home. Like Scott said, I don't want to say it, but I agree. We have the better coaching staff. We have the better overall coaching. We're better in the trenches. We're going to lean on them a little bit, chop wood. If you're a Georgia fan, you know what that is. I like it.
30. Scott, just go ahead and concede. There's no point in showing up.
38-28 with the last touchdown. We got a little bit more talent, a little bit more grit. 38-28 in the Classic. We're going to win it. That's my pick. And we cover. You know why, Scott? Good teams win. Great teams cover.
There you go, man. Would you like my pick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go 41-38 Bucks.
Shootout, man. Get the liquor out.
I think might have to grab for a seltzer, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I think it's going to be a shootout. I think we actually make, God forbid, some adjustments. I think we play loose. I think we come out. I think it could be a shootout. I think if we don't make adjustments, like I think in the Michigan game, I think it's going to get nasty, and I'm going to start pounding fucking drinks earlier. And I'm going to turn over to Ryan Seacrest and doing Dick Clark's fucking New Year's Eve bullshit.
See, honestly,
41-38, all right.
I thought long and hard about this. You know,
that's what she said.
He did while he was eating cheesecake, Scott.
I opened up, and consumed 3 or 4 of these non-existent seltzers we have from our sponsor. Just pondered who I thought was going to win this game. And I just think I just kind of feel like it's Ohio State's time. I think that Michigan loss, it was I think it was perfect because you're kind of looking at a mirror image. I think that they're probably getting I think they're probably a bit tired of reading about being soft and other things like that. I just think that Kirby had his time. I think the next guy up is Ryan Day. I think they get it done. I'm going to say the score is actually going to be surprising. I'm going to go with 24-17. I think it's
going Ohio State, Sean. You putting a swerve on us?
Mm-hmm. Ohio State.
Can you believe you heard that, Scott? The Georgia guy is picking Ohio State, but he might be doing this to get the juju and flip it.
I hear you, man. So basically what you're saying is this is like it's college game day. They invite on somebody else, and then he picks against the home team. So, okay. Fuck, works for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I guess I look at it this way. Like, I've just seen this, this was kind of the same story last year, I feel like. I mean, when Georgia got smacked around in the SEC title game, were we really that much worse than Bama? Probably not. I mean, were you guys really that much worse than Michigan? Probably not. And so I think it's just, I think there's a lot of psychological momentum, I think, that goes into responding, right? And so even though it sucks to kind of lose like that, I think that there's a lot of intangibles to come with that. Georgia at this point, no matter what anybody says, what any coach says, I think it's hard not to come into a game like this probably a little bit overconfident, especially when you factor in the injuries that you guys have. And I think Georgia was honestly overconfident against LSU, and you saw how that went, right?
They only had to play the first half.
Yeah,
and they covered.
Yeah.
But I mean, does an elite defense give up 500 yards? Probably not, right? Especially to a backup quarterback. So I don't think that everything's as hunky dory in Georgia land as a lot of people would like to believe. I certainly think that we're beatable. I think if your offensive line gives Stroud enough time, and you just go and let those receivers hunt, they're going to make some plays. And just, I'm telling you, if you can win a third down battle, you're eventually going to break that defensive will. It's just going to happen. We've seen it time again as Georgia fans. You've seen it time again, watching us lose to Bama and some of these other teams.
So you heard it here first, because Big Sean, lifetime Georgia fan, has gone and pulled, saying that Ohio State's going to pull the upset 24-17 because you said that. What you've now guaranteed is Georgia's going to win like 52-12 or something, and I'm going to be like, damn you, Sean.
Yeah, there's going to be a little swerve on the back end. He's turned heel. He's a baby face now. He's turning heel, wrestling terms.
Trey, be honest. Like, let's be honest with ourselves and with Scott. Like, we were not happy when we saw Ohio State get in the playoffs. Agreed?
Exactly. I told him earlier.
Every Georgia fan knows the one team that we're all afraid of, that we know can beat us for a fact, is Ohio State. Even with the injuries, it's true.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, one thing I will say, when we backed into the playoff is, and we talked about this on the other podcast, is I think Georgia, man, was the one that did pull the short straw by having to play Ohio State, because I think you'd rather be playing TCU right now. And they could say, no, that's not how we do the matchups, and, rematches. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's no different than last year. You didn't want to have Georgia and Alabama playing right away. Yeah, Georgia play Michigan. Who did Alabama even play last year? Fuck, I don't even remember. Who they play last year? Cincinnati. That's right. So what I'm getting at is, that's the reason that you did that. And I think, yeah, hey, look, Ohio State, we're just lucky to be there. But they were going to try to not have that rematch right away, So we'll see. And we can kind of get into, unless you have any other thoughts there, Sean or Trey, but we can kind of talk briefly about that Michigan TCU game as well. Unless you want to, would you like to talk about the Celtics there, Trey?
I did want to mention this real quick. We mentioned it last time. Got to bring this up. This is all I can find. This looks like Scribble Scrabble. Sean, you'll like this. Georgia defeats Ohio State in our only other meeting, 21-14 in the Citrus Bowl. Hey, Garrison Hurst, old school there, 28 rushes, 163. And who threw the last-minute touchdown for the loss in the dagger? Look at these numbers. Who's this guy right here? Who's this guy, Sean? Remember him?
Obviously not an Ohio State fan.
Kirby Herb Street throws the pick. And I believe they were joking about it. I believe that the pick maybe came from one named Will Muschamp, possibly. He took a little dig at him in the one of the press conferences. Like, man, when I saw that ball go up from here it is, Will Muschamp with the pick. When I saw that ball go up in the air, I had to get that pick, man. He knew it was gonna be bad from Herb Street. You can tell him that too. It's like, damn, all right.
I love it how the fact they didn't have computers back in 1993, obviously, or at least that's how they just, everybody typed out the official scoring summary.
Exactly.
Right.
Hey, so at the end of the day, Scott, if you do win, we're still knotted up at 1-1 in the overall series. So we got that going for us.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
So.
And then looks like we're all gonna need that during the game. It's gonna be stressful. So what do we need? Viva Seltzer, Viva Tequila Seltzer. 0 carbs, 0 sugar. All the good stuff. Live long, live well, live it up. My personal favorite is elderberry. Hopefully we'll get this over to Angry Scott some way to sample. Might be an old man by then. To get 20% off, so our discount code's HUSTLE. 20% discount. HUSTLE. VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. There you go.
Sean, do you want to give us your thoughts on the TCU Michigan game?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think it depends on what TCU team comes out there. I mean, that offense certainly has the ability to be really explosive, which, I think that if you can spread it out, same thing with, Georgia, like if you can spread it out and, get, explosive plays, you're giving yourself a chance. To me, it really comes down to if Michigan can kind of control the lines of scrimmage or not, which I think they probably will. And I think they'll probably grind it out. Now, if, I think if it turns into, a scoring marathon, though, I really like TCU's chances. I just don't know that, that's going to be the case, though.
Yeah, 7.5 point spread. You can make a pick real quick, Sean, if you had to pick 7.5.
I mean, I feel like probably like 35-21, honestly. I don't think it's like 7.5 necessarily going to be right, but
yeah. Would you rather? How about this? If Georgia by chance wins, would you rather play Michigan or TCU, or is that an obvious pick?
To me, I'd rather actually play Michigan, to be completely honest, because
better matchup.
Yeah, I mean, just again, explosive wide receivers always really make me nervous. And I'm not saying Michigan doesn't have those. I just kind of feel like spreading it out and throwing it all over the place is more TCU's forte, and just that's kind of a bit of our Achilles heel on defense. If you kind of take it out of your defensive line's hands, you're kind of at the mercy of the of the quarterback, so to speak.
There you go. What about you, Scott? What's your pick? I
know
your friends from the north, as you call them.
Yes. I would say I have a couple of things to say. First thing I'll say is fuck Michigan. And the second thing I'll say is I will take TCU 31-27, but I would not be surprised if Michigan wins. It's just that, as we talked about earlier, if you look at during the game and you look over at Harbaugh and you see a little trickle down his leg, it's because he tends to piss the bed in big games. And you'll say, hey, he won the last 2 Ohio State games. I'm like, that's true. He also lost the first 5. So he's still 2-5 against Ohio State. And And also, how did that game last year in the playoffs? Hey, we made the playoffs. Yeah. And they all come out, Michigan versus Georgia, and they all come out, the linemen, and with shirts to say, run the damn ball. I'm like, yeah, we're back and all that bullshit. And then they got fucking curb stomped. So I enjoyed that immensely. So Harbaugh in big games still seems to shit the bed. They're like, yeah, we got Ohio State this last 2 years. Okay. And we've had 20 years of dominance. So congratulations with that. If you're going to get a team, though, we kind of talked about this earlier. If you're going to get a team like Georgia, you're more likely to get them like a Mizzou, like it's a week-to-week thing. Hey, you got a week to prepare and everything. Where you have all this time to prepare, the better team usually wins, unless there's some kind of other crazy. If somebody doesn't prepare well or doesn't just well, you lose somebody along the way. So Michigan is the better team, the more talented team than TCU. We'll see. I mean, they're heavier favorites than I think. Georgia, Ohio State opened up at 7. I think went down to 6.5. But I think this game opened up like 8.5. I don't know where it is now. Do you know where the TCU Michigan game is right now?
Yeah, it is 7.5, sir, on ESPN. 7.5.
So it's come down a little bit. I mean, TCU is definitely a very good college football team. It's just that has their luck run out. The thing I'll say is that's what I'm trying to see is yes, Michigan has been a good second half team. Do they just wear people down over time? That's what I'm trying to figure out. And we'll see in these, this game here. And then if they make it to the championship, how they do. But now you're playing against, no disrespect to TCU, but you're not playing against equal talent in TCU. Not that they're not good. They deserve to be there, but you're playing against equal talent with whoever the winner is of Georgia, Ohio State, assuming you can win that game. So then can you wear down those guys? So I'm still going to go TCU 31-27 because I'm not from the SEC and I don't say, yeah, we got another one. I mean, fuck Michigan, man. I don't give a damn if they win the fucking national championship. In fact, I don't want them to win. Fuck that.
Yeah.
There
you go. I'll make a quick pick. I think TCU, definitely great story. Sonny Dykes playing with house money. Great year, turned that program. Max Duggan, hell of a quarterback, makes it in New York. I think he was banged up, played his heart out, got beat up a little bit by Kansas State. I want to see how healthy he is. But he's going to run out of gas, run out of bullets, putting the team on his back. Michigan, great second half team making adjustments. We saw that in the Ohio State game. Sorry, Scott. But I'm going to go 38-24. The pumpkin runs out at 12 o'clock. And Michigan's packs their ticket out to SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. So, yeah. And it'll be maybe Georgia Michigan rematch. And you know what, Sean? What I told Scott, if we beat Ohio State, then we beat Michigan. You know what that is? We're the national champs. We're also the Big Ten champs. Yes, sir.
Scott.
Hey, real quick, because Sean's really big into it.
Scott and the rest
gotta
of the
respect
Nation, I apologize.
Yeah. Hey, they like that last. Hey, real quick, Sean, I hope you can see that real quick. What did you think about our number 2 recruiting class? And you can actually talk on this, Scott. I know you don't follow it maybe as closely. You guys got number 6 overall. What did you think about number 2? I know Bama blew it out right here with 7 5-stars, 28. What do you think about that number 2 recruiting class for Georgia? And then if you had to pick one guy that makes an impact right away, you were excited about, who would that be?
I would give it probably a B.
Come on, man. I'm gonna go ahead. I got something for you on that. Go ahead. All right.
And the reason why I'll do that is that it's funny how often we talk about the defensive line and how dominant that has been. And now we've put in, we put 2 defensive linemen in the first round last year. We'll put another one in, at least they shot 3 last year. We're going to put another one in this year. And, for all the Trey Scott defenders, this is really the second year in a row where, your defensive line has absolutely shined. And you kind of had a stinker in terms of bringing in those, elite defensive linemen. I know we got that Jordan Hall guy who I guess is a 4-star at the end or whatever, but there aren't any Jalen Carters or Jordan Davises necessarily from what I can see that are behind. And so at some point, 2 years down the road or so, because it's how Georgia fans tend to be, they're gonna get amnesia and forget that they dog cussed out Big Sean for even daring to criticize Trey Scott and what the future is gonna hold. But I just didn't see enough elite defensive linemen, and I know we brought in
inside linebacker, man. Sick.
Well, and it goes without saying, Glenn Schumann's the best, recruiter at inside linebacker. I think he's the best defensive mind in college football. FYI, Scott, Buckeye fans, just so you know, that was the first person that Kirby brought with him when he took the Georgia job. He's kind of his protege, and pretty much is the architect of Georgia's defense. Even though he hasn't been the coordinator, he's kind of the one that's helped try to design defenses to stop the spread, so to speak. I think is
didn't play college football either, right? I don't think.
No, he didn't. And normally when at these coaching clinics, when they have Kirby go to speak or explain his defensive contacts, right? Philosophies. It's always Glenn Schumann that is actually doing it. After Kirby makes the intro, so he's kind of I'm not saying he's going to be this at that, but he's basically if Kirby's Bill Belichick to if Kirby's a Parcells, Schumann's is Belichick. But the guy always recruits well, he coaches well. That goes without saying. I guess we got the Marvin Wilson kid, if that's his name, the defensive the pass rusher, which I think we've needed sorely for years.
Damon Wilson, man, we actually out-duked him over Ohio State. Really close fight against Ohio State. We probably offered more NIL money. That's the rumor.
Yeah,
it's got to be that.
Yep.
And then it's Samuel and Pombo, I guess, is a 5-star. I guess maybe he can be an outside linebacker, just as more of an athlete. That said, again, I just think that, if you have an elite unit, right, it so confuses me that you can't get kids to come in and commit and want to play for that. To me, there's always, and we're going to give NIL money the same as any other program is out there. So the fact that we're not bringing in those next level can't miss guys, like defensive outside linebackers concerns me some. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think the offensive line class was particularly great. It wasn't great last year either. And just, next year, these guys are going to start playing. And so, as much value as our defense gets, I think the key to our success, the past 2 years, the difference has really been the offense. And, again, you've got to give Stetson Bennett a lot of credit because he's obviously getting it done at the quarterback position. Yeah, Monken as well. But a big reason why that Stetson Bennett is, having the success he has is our offensive line. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, and even who's the guy who was our left tackle last year that's now with the Chargers? Sawyer.
Jamar Sawyer.
Yeah, I mean, he was supposed to be an all-miss, or a can't-miss all-world recruit coming out of high school. I thought he was going to be a guard, and really had trouble breaking in the starting lineup. Then they played him some at left tackle, and he played great at left tackle, but knock on him always was, well, I think his arm's going to be too short to be great in the pros. He's only like 6'2", and then I think I saw a stat earlier in the season where he was the best performing left tackle in the NFL. So if you have a guy like that that's protecting you and giving you time, it's going to make a difference. So it's clearly, I think that there was a need for some elite offensive linemen, and we kind of just brought in a bunch of 3-stars or whatever. I don't think it should be that difficult to bring in high caliber offensive line talent, especially when you like to run the ball like that, and you put guys in the pros. So I mean, again, to me, that's just, I mean, again, I know that's probably nitpicking a little bit. A lot of people don't want to hear criticism, especially when you're on a run like we've had, but I'm looking long term here to the future, and at some point these kids are going to have to play, and it's just kind of a bit absurd to me to think there's not going to be a step down in terms of the caliber of play if the guys you're bringing in aren't as good as the guys that they're replacing.
Trey, can you pull up rivals.com and pull up those rankings?
Rivals? Who does Rivals?
Pull up rivals, man. Pull up rivals.
Hold on, really quick. We'll do that in just a second. I got a counter here because that's half glass full doomsday, Sean. Jeez, man.
It's gonna be another 40 years. That's what I heard. Another 40-year drought.
You gotta jump out. Here, all right, here's my counter. Sean, listen to me now. This class was the highest rated per player average of any Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart has had except for his first year, no less than top 3, according to 247, 27, 93.75, the best overall per player class he's had. I hit the high marks. Damian Wilson, player right away, going to be impact. AJ Harris, great in the secondary. He's a project. Best inside linebacker recruiting core he's had, going to be loaded there. Back to your offensive tackle. 4-star, and the other dude was a 4-star, Bo Hughley. We had to hold off Auburn and several others. Tight ends. We got 2 elite 4-star tight ends. Also, we're going to get the other dude. Who's the other guy we're after? Is the 5-star tight end out of California. He's probably headed over, the number 1 overall. Anthony Edwards, speed demon right here, has the potential to get 40, 50 balls. Also brought in Ra Thompson and Dominique Lovett, who were in the top 2 or 3 overall wide receiver yardage-wise from Mississippi State and Missouri. I think we got some under the radar guys. Another guy who is going to be a Jordan Davis type is going to be the 4-star guy. Who's this guy? Jared, 6'6", 340, can clog up the middle. That's going to be your nose tackle that you always want, Sean. So I think all in all, underrated, quietly great class. I'll say that. And I'll say like an A- over your B. But that's just my thoughts. Maybe I've been listening too much to our boy Rusty Manziel, but I think it's overall a really great class. I know you only see 2 5-stars. Bama killed it. Got to give it to them. But all in all, still number 2 class. So that's my thoughts. I'll look up.
Pull up that rivals.com.
Yeah. What are we going to look up on Rivals? This is recruiting?
Team rankings.
Sean, go ahead and counter who listens to Rivals anymore. Sean, you're more of a 247 guy.
And on 3 as well.
There you go. All right, we'll bring it up though. I think you guys are 4. You were 6 and 247. The only reason why we follow that, Scott, is because Sean pays his little dues there. Can you see that? Which one are we on here? I'll move that up. Sorry.
Team rankings.
There you go. You're number 4. Ohio State.
See, there you go, man. Look, Alabama and Georgia still wanted to. Okay, but that puts us up higher. So I think that's the one you need to look at.
Hey, you trying to pat it there, Scott?
I'm just saying, man. That's all. I mean, obviously, world's fucking coming to an end over there with Sean. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I don't know how we're gonna pull this together, but
who's your best? Is he your best over? Who's your best overall guy or on stars or whatever?
We got a couple 5-star
wide receivers. Yeah.
Yeah. How about Cardell Tate? He must be the man. 6'2" overall guy. Must be the man. And Brandon Enos. Good for him.
A couple guys coming out of Florida, I believe. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I like Scott. Just goes points right. Top 4. Good to go, man. We're going.
Well, we'll find out, man. We'll find out. It's all these rankings. I mean, yes, you want to get 5-star talent, but then you want to make sure Chris Olave, I think, was like a 3-star guy, kind of off the radar, and then top 10 pick. So It's really, what do you develop into? If you get a 5-star guy and then he becomes a 5-star guy, fine. But if you see a diamond in the rough and a 3-star, and then you make him a 1st-round pick, that's what you want. I don't follow recruiting that much. You want to get a lot of talent, but it's what do you do to develop it? What do you turn it into?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. I know it's getting a little late there. Really appreciate it. Looks like I'm the only one picking the dogs out of both podcasts. What is it? 3-2? No, 3-1. So we'll see. Hope the dogs can pull it out. Should be a really competitive game. Anything you want to get off your chest there, fellas?
Nah.
Okay. How about you, Angry Scott? Anything? We really appreciate Big Sean
Go
giving us
Bucks,
his time
man.
again.
Glad to have Big Sean back. Don't be a stranger to the program. We'd love to get you back here. We want to like and subscribe. We'll get together and we'll have some, like every fucking guy out there, have a hard seltzer and elderberry. Nothing says, drinking with your buddy like a hard seltzer, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we really appreciate it. That's Herschel Talkers, and we're out.